Riesling and Etruscan, addicts of drugs not yet synthesized, black marketeers of World War III, excisers of telepathic sensitivity, osteopaths of spirit, investigators of infractions denounced by bland paranoid chess players.
What is going on, my freaks, geeks, and freethinkers? This is Mike Romanelli with episode number 56 of the Freethinkers Society. I got my main man, Clint Esposito, sitting across. What's up, Clint?
Not much. Staying warm in the attic here.
Nice and warm in the attic. Yeah, this was a fun episode, man. We had Todd Armstrong on, and he blew my mind. He blew my mind with some stuff about Christ and
the Christ consciousness, not like...
Yeah, well...
You know, for when I went to church when I was little, or even my whole life, I've always been like, is Jesus not God? Like, why? In the Bible, it's very convoluted, whether they're talking about, like, Jesus is Lord. I don't know. That sounds like God, does it not? Like,
yeah.
So I think maybe he shed some light on some of that.
He definitely, for me, it was a really... eye-opening episode. In fact, since we recorded this, I've been listening to the Bible and listening to some of these stories, and it's not all for me, but there is some good stuff in there, and it's got me thinking again. I really appreciated talking to this guy. This was cool. I hope you guys like this episode.
All right, and if you like this episode or not, you should buy Hero Soap either way. Go to herosoapcompany.com. It is actually made in the United States, owned by an Army or an Air Force veteran. Your first order is matched and sent to deployed military members, and you can go there now and use the code Freethinkers with an S and get 20% off. And we would appreciate that. So enjoy the show.
Do you love freedom? Do you love being clean? Then you'll love Hero Soap Company, made in the USA. Chemical and fragrance free. A portion of each purchase donated to veteran and first responder charities. Initial subscription purchase is matched bar for bar and sent overseas to deployed troops. Let freedom clean. Hero Soap Company.
What's up, Clint?
Not much, Michael. How are you?
Well, I don't want to leave our guests in here too long. What's going on, man? I got Todd Armstrong with me. What's up, Todd? How are you?
What's going on, gentlemen? I am doing well. How are you doing?
We're good. I'm happy to have you on. You got referred by Mark, who's a good friend of mine, and he had some interesting things that he thought that you and I would be able to connect on.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, Mark is a friend of mine as well. I like to call him a friend anyway. He linked me up with All Media United, so that was really cool. And I think that we probably will have a good conversation. I heard you originally. I might have heard you somewhere else, but I know your episode on Third Eye Awakening with Amy Blair.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was an excellent interview, and actually I interviewed with her the day I listened to yours, so it was like on top of my memory when I talked to her.
That's so awesome, man. That's the first time anyone's ever heard me from that. I thought you were gonna say like Tommy G or Tinfoil Hat, but
yeah, I probably heard you on Tinfoil Hat before too, but that one really stuck out to me because I mentioned you actually a few times in that episode, referring back to things you guys had talked about. So
very
cool. I found a lot of interesting things in your awakening.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, that was so much fun. Amy's amazing.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's great. I was just on a Union Unwanted with her, but it was such a large panel that, I didn't really get to chat with anyone. But
right.
Yeah, that was so. You just said it. Your awakening. You have a very interesting. I don't have many details on it, but that was the first question I wanted to ask you. I just want to ask you, like, how did this journey begin? How did this awakening happen? If you don't mind getting into that.
Well, it was. So I was in a very low, dark place. I was in prison. I was a drug addict. I had many different common mental illness that I'll say: anxiety, depression, OCD. Can't sit still, can't get a grasp on your own anger and rage, and all those just daily things that just build and build and build. Mm-hmm. And I just rapidly became a psychic, and it was I worked out. I take everything to the extreme. So when I was a drug addict, I was an extreme drug addict.
Yes.
You know, when I went to prison, it was for burglarizing, going on a spree of pharmacy burglaries. You know, I wasn't being caught because I was extreme with everything. I prepare for something and I go into it head first. So
you used to smash and grab pharmacies?
yeah, a few of them. Yeah.
I'm sorry to glorify that, but that's always when I was out there. I never had the balls for that, but I was like, damn, that's.
The first time, well, I don't want to glorify it either, but the first time my heart was beating so fast I couldn't hear anything but my heart beating in my ears. It was like real crazy. Like I never had that type of feeling other than then. But yeah, so I went from there to working out to an extreme amount. I then all of a sudden I did psychedelics to an extreme amount. But right before the psychedelics, I was researching giants and ancient civilizations again to an extreme. You know, that's what led me into the psychedelics, because I was like, okay, ancient cultures were doing this. You know, there's something to it, and boom, it just connected me to God, and I've been on this roll ever since. And actually, now I don't recommend psychedelics in the way that I maybe once would have. Not that I recommend against them. People can get benefits from them, but I've learned so many ways to do it without that.
I still dive into the journey every once in a while. I'll do it more in a ceremonial fashion. I won't just take them on a Friday night anymore or something like that. But I like that message, Todd, because I think although psychedelics are super important, at least to myself, I do think we have to be careful how at least for myself, how I got it. The message I give. I don't want the way I did it. I feel like for myself, I did it not knowing. Like you said, extreme is a great way to say it. And I got some great downloads doing it that way. I don't recommend it. And I think you're right. I would love to hear how you're going to say you can get to these states naturally. But one question while you're saying this, was it like one big flash, this awakening, or was it a slow process?
I mean, it's been 2 years now, and I've just been, you know, it's just a huge, just complete 360. I mean, it wasn't even 7 years ago that I got arrested. And there's not one thing about me today that you'd recognize from that person that got arrested. Not one thing. The way that I handle myself as a father, as a person in general, the types of music I listen to, just like literally every detail about my life, because I'm extreme. When I started being the observer to myself, I took it to the extreme and I started fixing everything about me. And I am also an energy reflector on the human design type. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but there's only 1% of people are reflectors, and we're basically mirrors to everybody else. Whenever anyone looks at me, they're going to, I can say a blanket statement, you know, a very bland statement, and a million different people will take it a million different ways, depending on their perception of how they would be saying the words that I'm saying. And so the vice versa, I see everyone else as a mirror to me. So when I see, and also I have figured out that the way that we live our lives, it's just God telling us what we're doing in our mind. You know, the physical things that occur in our lives are just patterned behaviors that are within our own minds. So once I started seeing that, then I was able to fix what was wrong with me, because I had things happening to me that I didn't want.
So you're saying that you see a reflection of yourself in every person?
Yeah. I can. So the psychic abilities have just really taken over me. So it happens that when I talk to somebody, our consciousness just starts mixing. And it's like I kind of put somebody inside my body, and then I can just feel all around them. So I do energy work with people. I do spiritual baptisms. I cut the head off of snakes of their Kundalini. I cut the head off of the serpent that we know as a Kundalini, and I allow people to use their own energy. So I'm very accustomed to the astral world, which came extremely quickly.
So, hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry to do this.
Yeah, no worries.
I gotta edit 1 second. Hold on. What's up, Kara? Oh, just peeked her head. Sorry, someone peeked their head in. And okay, that was very interesting. I don't know if you're gonna be able to edit that, Clint. I'm sorry. When you said the cut the head off the Kundalini, isn't the Kundalini energy something that should be all working on rising in our own self?
No, we shouldn't.
Okay.
Okay, again, the way that I learn things isn't the way that I'd recommend now. So what happened was, I'll say it very quickly, is that I basically tried debunking Jesus as God and then learned Jesus was God through having demon attachments to me. By doing all the things that I did, psychedelics, Kundalini, I've raised my own Kundalini, didn't know anything about it. All I knew was the Egyptians taught that if you withhold from ejaculation for 100 days, that you will raise your Kundalini. And they didn't use those words in what I was learning. This was completely foreign to me. So I did it. And what happened is COVID happened. It was from December 31st, 2019 until Easter of 2020 was my 100th day. So it was this rapid thing that happened for me. And so then I wasn't working, and I really got into researching everything esoteric, occult, magic. I mean, I got into it all very quickly. And then I had demons knocked out of me in January by Jesus Christ. And then I've learned ever since that Jesus Christ is God, that, I'm not Christian. I would never identify as Christian. And there's a lot of practices Christians do that are not something that I like. But I work alongside Jesus Christ. Like, I say that I'm a psychic soldier for him with him because I talk to other people when he tells me, have this person give me their burdens, and I'll text them and say it like out of the blue, and they'll say, I was just praying. I was just talking to Jesus. And like Jesus is telling me things to tell people at different times. So it's very strange. So
And this is something that just happened within the last year.
Yeah.
That these abilities that you received.
Yeah. So the ability started 2 years ago. It was actually on December 22nd, which is odd because that's when, the sun dies in the sky for 3 days and then rises on Christmas. Yeah. That was a really wacky time for me because my crown chakra had popped open. I took too big of a bong hit back in June or May or April of that year, somewhere around there. And my crown chakra just opened up, and all of a sudden I felt like I was going crazy. I was feeling my synapses on my brain firing like I've never felt before. Just I could feel connected to something that I've never been connected to before. And I was having these thoughts and visions, and just all of a sudden I was like in the throes of being psychic out of nowhere. So Christmas was like really ramped up for me. And I was told repeatedly, you just have to deal with this. It's never going to close again. This is what you're here for.
Okay. So, all right. So you had an experience with cannabis and you actually felt something, boom, open up. And from that point on, you've felt this, you get these downloads, the psychic information. I do need to go back to ask you about the Kundalini.
Right, yes.
Because I have to, we're just going to have an awesome conversation, go back and forth. I too feel like I always feel like this, me and Sam Tripoli and I said, we're like knuckle draggers. I would feel like I've been this like knuckle dragger, flips over stones, and you see these little ecosystems going on. I've done that with the occult. I've done that with psychedelics, a lot without purpose, right? And it's interesting we're having this conversation because I'm at a fork in my life where I'm trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go, and I think I messed with things I shouldn't have messed with. I don't have regret, but so for me, I always thought the Kundalini energy rising was a good thing, but then again, what the hell do I know? You said you want to cut the head off of that. Were you also trying to achieve to raise your own Kundalini, and you realized that you weren't supposed to do this?
Okay, yeah. So what I got to with Jesus was that Jesus taught me that we don't need that. So what it is a lot of us here, and this will get to a conspiracy a bit, but there is two different seeds. There's two different lines. There's the line of Adam, and then there's the serpent seed. There are two different competing things on this earth, and we're at a point in time where now every human has both to some degree.
Okay.
This is the Nephilhem. This is why they couldn't reproduce. They had to instead have the DNA mixed with that race with our race because we can reproduce. So this is why like the royals will have the goldsmiths are a family that they will reproduce with because they couldn't mix with each other. They needed to mix more with humans.
Okay.
So some of us have kundalinis and it's extremely strong, and some of us don't have kundalinis at all. Well, I'd say that not kundalinis at all, but they'd be like gardener snakes compared to like boa constrictors.
Maybe for the listeners, we should explain what is Kundalini. Can we
Okay,
do that
yes.
real quick.
So the Kundalini, it is within, as I'm saying, it's within most of us. It is a staff and a serpent that wraps around the staff. So it is you raise when
Medicine
you don't.
sign?
Yeah, exactly. So when you don't ejaculate externally for that 100 days, it's not just withholding from that, but you actually get yourself to a point where you internally release it. It feels exactly the same.
Like tantric, right?
I'm not sure
Okay.
what that is.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a practice, but okay.
Okay. Yeah. So this was all things that just happened to me. This I wasn't learning from anyone. So it just, you do it within you and it raises up and eventually it gets to the 33rd vertebrae, which then hits to the pineal gland. And this is what is the quote unquote enlightening process and raising the Kundalini.
Yes.
So some of us have like boa constrictors wrapped around the staff. Some of us have like little tiny gardener snakes and they, there's like nothing there, no energy to it. So I cut the head off because it has its own thoughts. People confuse it with the ego, but it's actually not the ego. It's something different. It's something within you that is not within everybody else. It's the darkness, literally. It's the darkness that is within us. So some of us need to have I'd say all of us need to have the head cut off so that we can use the energy, because we are obviously born with the energy in us. There's nothing we can do about that. So we can use the energy, but the thoughts aren't controlled by the serpent. So what I do is I pull. So sometimes people have mirrors within them. So this is a practice that I do. I pull mirrors out of people and then I merge. It's like a doppelganger and the original. I kind of merge them. And then I will pull the snake through the crown. I will cut the head off, and then I will plug it back in through the mouth of God chakra. So that way you can use the energy, but it's filtered through heavenly realms and comes back into you in a good way. And you're blocked from receiving negative energies that way.
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting. I never heard that. Yeah,
it's rare.
Yeah, but it's hey, maybe you just figured out something that a lot of us need to hear. This is cool. So you're saying use the energy, but you don't want the head of the snake, which is shadow side, dark side. Is that what you'd say? Is actually an actual dark force?
Yes, it is the nothingness, the abyss that has gotten into us. As the Nephilhem are essentially the dead, that they are demons, what we know as demons. That they come from a realm where I would call it the abyss. Okay. And they come into here. It's space. It's outer space, hyperspace, if you want to call it the dimension that our screens are connected to, the dimension that the psychedelics connect us to. That is the nothing, and the nothing comes in to us through the Kundalini. So the nothing isn't just something that is there. Like the ego is something that is there that you have to deal with because we all build up traumas and everything. But the nothing is its own entity within itself, and you really have to get rid of the thought process that it has in you in order to defeat it.
Now you said it was a psychedelics are a bridge to this void, to this nothing.
Yes, it's the same place where you dream, where you sleep, astral world, the 4D, some people call it. It's all the same place. It's the the place in between us and heaven. It is the abyss, as the Bible would say.
So you're saying that's what this, because whenever I drink ayahuasca, especially in ceremony, the second it hits me, I get an om, and this sound, and it's like this familiar home spot that does sound very similar to. It feels comfortable, but it does also feel cold and almost like it's a like you're saying, an abyss.
Is this the information superhighway that I'm always referencing? That once you do psychedelics, you can kind of tap into?
He's talking about like accessing like the ether of information through psychedelics.
Right. It is like ether, essentially. Yeah, I wouldn't call it the information highway. That's not a way I would describe it.
Well,
but
yes, I couldn't think of anything better at the time. But I mean, we've talked about, like a bigger consciousness where basically, what they say that fire was found all over the earth, like within 200 years of each other or something like that, which at that point, something's going on, right? Like they can't call each other. Has to be just
that was the fallen angels
that told them.
Yeah. So the craziest thing about my awakening is that I was someone who wasn't Christian. I didn't grow up knowing Jesus or the church or the Bible at all. And it turns out angels, demons, and Jesus are like the real deal, and Jesus and Satan. And the psychic world has just really opened me up. And when I got hooked up with Jesus, a lot of psychics, they'll lose their abilities. Mine only strengthened. And it was like it took on a life of its own. Like, no, this is what you are meant to do, and you are going to do it. So it was crazy. But the demons, as I said, are the spirits. You've heard movies probably before where they call it the nothing is coming in. Mm-hmm. So I've just recently heard of the Bach saga, and I had my good friend Andy Rouse. We do a show called Worship in the Storm together every few Fridays on YouTube. He is really studying this stuff, and it's Finland and Sweden and the Netherlands, their language, and there's root language where when we start looking at ancient languages, we have to take the vowels out of words because the vowels weren't used then. So he would find things that were very similar to other English words, and they're connecting the dots in a very easy way. So there's a thing called the Nephilhem in the Netherlands, right? Mm-hmm. And it sounds exactly like Nephilhem, but it's a little different. But what it is, the Nephilhem is the place of the dead. So the Nephilim come from the place of the dead. They are the demons that come from the place of the dead, which is the abyss, and they are the nothing. The Netherlands, the nothingness, that is where the nothing lives. The Netherlands, it's all interdimensional travel, which is the same as our computers, our psychedelics, meditation, all those things. It's all interdimensional. It takes you to the same place where you astral travel, astral project, all that, lucid dreams.
Is this is it positive or negative or neither?
So the nothing is trying to stay alive by coming here. It needs hosts, right? It needs to trick us into letting it in, like a parasite almost. You hear this with vampires or black-eyed children, or just with any kind of attachment. You have to let in the attachment. You have to willingly agree to it. So it tries tricking us, and now it has control of our government and financial leaders, and it has for a long time. And it is being taken out of all of existence, and this is like its final frontier, essentially, that it's God versus this nothing, and the nothing is running out of room, essentially, that God is probably closing this place off to the abyss, and that the nothing is trying to get as many of us right now as it can. And it may look like black goo as we would see it physically.
So a question I want to ask you: if you're saying it's a place that you get to through psychedelics, is it almost a trickster type thing? Do the psychedelics show you this beautiful land or this a brain candy, and it's actually false?
I wouldn't say it's false, but see, it's very confusing when we get into the astral realms because it's so far different than our physical world, and we feel like, oh, this feels like I've been here before. It feels like home in a sense.
Yes.
It's because we have been there before, but I don't think that it's somewhere where we want to be. You know, I don't think that it's a very positive place.
Okay. So we don't get too far out there with the and keep it a little more, because I'm enjoying this, but I also don't want people to get too lost.
Right.
Let's get back to your awakening. So once you started getting these psychic abilities, once you started getting this relationship with Christ, how did it start happening?
So, okay, I'll tell the story, and it's so funny. Every time I tell it, the people always get a good laugh out of it. So I'm a truck driver, and I deliver Hispanic food to Hispanic restaurants. And I had a hand truck full of chicken and cheese, and I went to pull up a little lip, a little sidewalk. But instead, my boots slipped out from under me. I was on a wet floor, and the 400 pounds just fell on me, and I was pinned to this, so I couldn't brace myself. So I landed right on my root chakra, which is just a little bit below my tailbone. I think I've hit my tailbone before, but this was like 2 bones under or something, not very far under, but just under it. And what happened was, and I've been psychic for like a year at this time already. So my third eye's open. I hear things, I have all sorts of abilities. And because I'm a reflector, I can just pick up abilities when I talk to somebody that's psychic. I'll just pick up their ability. So what happened was my root chakra just, boom, cracked open, and sludge. This is the first time I ever saw it. Sludge slipped out of it, and it looked like big turds were just like slipping out.
Yeah.
And I couldn't walk. Like I felt like I was paralyzed. It was, when it happened, I couldn't feel my legs before. I never had that feeling before, that I could not feel my legs. So I had to get myself out from under it by putting my hands on the ground and like using my hands only to get myself out. So this was actually the Wednesday, or this was the Friday after the inauguration, when Biden got inaugurated, right, on Wednesday. So the day before, I canceled my Twitter because I was so upset. I was not really in the Q thing at that point, but I was like, something has to happen. They can't just allow this craziness to go on. Yeah. And it didn't. And I was like, F Twitter. I'm being, I'm letting people influence me, and I want to get away from all social media. So I got off of it. So then this happens Friday. And then I worked the rest of that day. I worked Saturday, and I'm off Sunday. But I could barely walk this entire time. So Saturday, for no reason at all, I just started burning tobacco when I'm having a fire out back, which I learned later is a Native American practice to ward off evil spirits.
Yeah.
Yes. So then Sunday, I was drinking some tea, and I had a pretty good day. And then I was a little, loopy at the time. Because I was just in a good mood. And so me and my daughter are joking around, and I start laughing a lot. And then my girlfriend and I start joking around, and I start laughing a lot again. And then all of a sudden, I have to run into the bathroom, and I can barely walk at this time. So I get to the bathroom as fast as I can, and I go hurl. And I have this huge vision of a snake was spitting me out. It was trying to swallow my third eye, but my third eye became too bright with Christ in it from the laughter and joy that I was, it was like a whole ritual I was doing that I wasn't actively participating in. I didn't know this was going on. And I just expelled, I had 2 big hurls. Nothing physically came out, but I felt such relief that the words, I've been saved by Christ, came to me. And I was in the state of bliss that you feel on mushrooms, that 10-minute bliss feeling that you get. I had that for 36 straight hours. And then for the next 8.5 days, I had it, but to a lesser degree. but I was in bliss for 10 straight days. And as soon as it happened to me, I threw open my bedroom door, and my girlfriend looked at me and I said, I've been saved by Christ. And she is somewhat psychic as well. And she was like, I knew that's what you were going to say. Like, she heard me, hurl, but then I just throw open the door and I'm like, I've been saved by Christ. It was the most relieving feeling. And that's the only word to describe it, was bliss. It was the nirvana that the Buddhists talk about. I was in that for 10 days. It was quite amazing.
Wow. Did you actually feel like the entity come out of you when you were
oh yeah,
when you were vomiting?
Yeah, it was big time. I felt it was the second hurl that got it out of me. And at first I thought like it was inside of it, like I had swallowed it, but then when I had the vision at the same time, it was like, no, it was trying to swallow me and it spit me out. I didn't throw him up. He threw me up, and I was hurling as the physical representation of how my brain could process what was going on.
I've experienced the expelling through in ayahuasca many times. I've seen people expel and seen like demons or dark stuff come out. Most of the time that I've had the best purge where I feel an entity come out is not when, like you said, not when actual vomit comes out, but it's just the loudest, and like, whoof, it comes out, and it's such a great feeling. It also happened to me recently. I do combo. I don't know if you're familiar with combo. It's a frog venom that you get burned into you, and it's
oh, I've heard of that. Okay.
Yeah, so I do that a couple times a year, and this last time, it was my last session to complete the, like, what we call it, the vaccination of it, and normally it's like, well, it's not normal, but for the most part you will vomit like a yellowish, but this last time it was a black goo that came out.
Wow.
And it felt like, she said it was a curse, some kind of curse that was on me. That was the last thing, but it was like the last thing to come out. Boom, just this black sludge, and it felt so good. Now, when you said about the Christ part, I wish I had that. I wish I had that message, but I did want, the first time I ever did ayahuasca, I had a feeling of Christ consciousness. Now, I don't know if it's a trickster thing, because the vision of what I saw was what people would almost call a Quetzalcoatl. It was a giant serpent with wings, but it had a feeling of unconditional love. I was not scared at all by it. It was the message it was telling me was I was receiving Christ consciousness and feeling what that was. What do you think that was that I was seeing?
So Quetzalcoatl, I believe, is the biblical Antichrist. If there was going to be one, that he would fulfill everything. He has all the same attributes as Jesus, except that he is half serpent, that he is a dragon. And so he can shapeshift into human form and into dragon form. So it was, what they tell us is that the angels of the dark wouldn't be any good if they just came out and mess with you right away. They have to get you to believe them. So they do have abilities. They are angels. They do have secret knowledge. They do have different abilities that God has granted them. They are the children of God, after all. So they can do different things that will trick you into giving yourself over to them. Are you familiar with all of the sacrifice that was happening in Mesoamerica and South America to Quetzalcoatl? Yeah, so Quetzalcoatl consumes humans, their blood. Actually, Vlad the Impaler was another incarnation of Quetzalcoatl. After he moved on from the Americas, he went to become Vlad the Impaler, which Vlad the Impaler's nickname is the son of Dracula. And then you have Elizabeth Bathory was over there. They were all consuming massive amounts of blood. The royals are related
to this being. That was their god, let's say.
Yeah, so that's why they were sacrificing themselves. They were willingly giving themselves over because of this. They unlike Jesus is saying, willingly give yourself over to me to let me live life through you. This is a perverted version of that, and it's like, give yourself over to me and you can live on through me rather than I will live on through you, the way Jesus does it. But it's the same, oh, give yourself over to me. You know, they walk you up to the aisle and then they trick you. Or then, you know, that's when the mask is really shown. That's when the veil comes off. They're only allowed in you and long enough for you to allow them to be there.
Wow. Freaking me out a little bit, man.
Mm.
Because I think I was tricked a few times. My
I'm
last
sure of it.
couple experiences were not anything like that. It was straight demon stuff. I did some great messages afterwards, and some great things happened and changes in my life from these ceremonies. But it's been real dark since. Like it was these beautiful beings, and I thought it's interesting to get your take on it, because I thought maybe, you know how so much of our history, everything's upside down. So the message I got at the time was, well, maybe we're just taught wrong. Maybe that is what, you know, it was a loving God, what I saw. But it's interesting, and you are right. I mean, that they would have blood sacrifices for these things. So how could that be a God of love? Or how could that be, you know, I don't say right or wrong, but the false light, let's say. You said you didn't grow up Christian. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So this is your path or would you call yourself a Christian now?
No, I don't identify with Christianity. Jesus doesn't, he's not happy with the church, how they have held people down and perverted people and turned people away from Christ. They've been perverting the message of Christ. So it's not that Jesus doesn't love Christians, you know, but not every Christian is saved. Also, we know this. So it's a fine line in between the truth and the lie. And if people are going to react in an emotional stance, then anyone can perceive, they'll call me the Antichrist, they'll call me Lucifer, because they don't want to face reality. So no, I wouldn't classify myself as a Christian.
Okay.
So you're a Jesus follower, not a Christian.
Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't say disciple, because I'm not the physical disciple of his, but that's something along the lines of what I'd say I'm just a super psychic soldier for Jesus.
Man, I know quite a few people that would identify the same as you, and I find them very interesting, and
That's the first time I've heard somebody say that obviously, because I would say most people that are followers of Jesus would consider themselves Christian. So that's the first time I've heard somebody say that the whole scenario got, perverted and screwed up, which I would agree with, which is why I'm like, no, with,
it's a big reason for me too,
religions
man.
and stuff, because
Big reason.
So many of us.
yeah.
And I like what you're saying. I really like what you're saying, Todd, because I think a lot of people can identify with Christ and want to identify with Christ, but it's very hard for them to get around their minds around, especially the Catholic Church. I mean, that's just crazy, right? I mean, to me, that's upside down world. To me, that's very satanic. And I'm an Italian Catholic. Went to Catholic school my whole life. But so I'm not mocking, but it's the more I learn, that looks like a black mask. That looks like demonic behavior, even the mass and everything. Now, when you go to the Christians, not to pick apart everything, but with the Christians, you have these super churches, right? There's just so many things that are wrong. And it's sad, because I think the world needs Christ, I guess you could say right now, or I'm not 100%. I'm moving towards that direction. Because of all of the journeys I've had, right? I started this spiritual, you said higher self, so you did meditating. It seems like we've been on similar journeys, and I think you're just a little bit more ahead of me personally, because it feels like I'm going to that direction. It's just taking me, like I said, I'm a knuckle dragger. It's taking me a little bit longer to get there. And the way you describe it, I enjoy that. I like that. I think that's great, because that turns people off.
Right.
Like what Clint said. Like, I know you're so standoffish of like the church or organized religion.
For sure.
Right. So when I was a kid, I was baptized Methodist, I'll say. And when I was like up until like the age of 9 or 10, maybe I went to Sunday school, not every single week, but half the year, something roughly like that. So I was aware of it, but I didn't know, I wasn't taught anything about Jesus. I was given the dullest version of what can possibly be anything. I was so bored there. I didn't pay attention. So I didn't know any of this stuff. So what started happening with my psychedelic trips and meditations is I started encountering beings that I've heard described in the Bible. The seven-headed, ten-horned beast of Revelation, I encountered that beast in a psychedelic trip. The cherubim that has a one lion face in the front, on the side's an eagle, the other side's a man, the other side is an ox or a bull. I encountered one of those beings in a meditation. Wow. The eyes within eyes on the wheels within wheels, the Ezekiel's wheel, the angel in the clouds. I have seen that in my actual clouds. So I have encountered all this different stuff, biblical stuff, the stuff that Paul was teaching about that he was seeing. I just started seeing all these things, and I didn't have a Bible background at this time. I'm more New Age. I wasn't literally New Age. I wasn't learning from anyone New Age, but I was learning those types of Eastern mysticisms. That's what I was really studying. And then all of a sudden I start having these experiences. Then I have that experience where I'm saved by Christ. And what happens from there is I went on a few different podcasts to share my awakening story. In March, like late February maybe, but into early March. And then in April, and I had planned on making a podcast way back in like November of last year or something. I started playing with the idea. I had a lot to say. I was doing Save the Children rallies. I was psychic, I was doing all these things, but it would have been more towards promoting myself. Yeah. And then in April, it was like this calling of, okay, just start the podcast. I was a knuckle dragger. I was someone who I could barely turn on a computer 9 months ago, or right before I started this podcast. And now I'm doing audio editing, video editing, doing all these different things. And it's like all I really have to do is spend a little bit of time doing it and not get frustrated with it. But I can do it. But I was so far removed from doing these things that I just grew into it. And what really happened was the first 13 episodes, I told my story, all my traumas. I have many traumas that I talk about. Sexual trauma. My daughter's mother had done a lot of things to me in that department. Not sexual trauma, but I don't want to get into all the things, but she traumatized me as well. My mother traumatized me. Not that my mother didn't love me, of course, but there's just things that happen in life, and I had so much trauma. And because I was so extreme with my observation of myself and my behaviors, and I also started unlocking these repressed memories. I've been, I didn't say this in the beginning, but I've been abducted my entire life up until I was saved by Christ as well. I was abducted by Greys, Mantids, Nordics, as some people call them, the three of them working in unison.
Wow. So as a child, or?
Yeah, my entire life.
Your whole life?
Yeah, up until I was saved in January. Because when you use the name of Jesus Christ, you invoke the name of Jesus Christ, they leave.
I heard that. So is that with any being?
Yes. If it's not a being of Christ, it will, it can hold on for so long, but then eventually it goes away. If you keep doing it, it's how much belief and understanding you have in your heart when you say these words that give it, they can't be hollow words. They have to actually mean something to you. And I stopped being abducted. This works for sleep paralysis as well. If anybody's out there, you just have to have the belief and understanding. So in my psychic world, what I do is I send souls up to heaven, and they're all bound to the earth plane because they think that they have sold their souls to the devil, so to speak. And they're bound to the earth because they haven't accepted Christ in their heart. So the only way that I can get them there, the salvation, is through them doing this exact thing, saying, I believe Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Like just repeating it until they have firm belief in it, and then all of a sudden they just start ascending.
I have notes in my about the Rapture Timeline. Is this kind of what you're talking about?
No, so the Rapture is something that goes with Tartaria and mud floods, and
Okay. Because you're saying about okay. I want to keep in this direction. I just
Well-
wasn't sure. We were talking about untethering the souls, and I was wondering if it was something that was happening on this timeline. I'm sorry, Clint. What were you saying?
Well, I have a question about how you feel about. There's a lot of studies that show and archaeological finds that show that they used to use psychedelics in ritual prior to it being basically kind of Christian, when it was still pagan. Do you know anything about that? Or obviously having seen this stuff that's in the Bible, I would imagine that you probably, at least believe there's some truth to it.
So what do you mean, the psychedelics?
Yeah, like the wine. Originally, the sacrament used to be a psychedelic mix, and then through history, they kind of made it less and less, and then it became just wine itself.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't familiar with that. But the psychedelics, the whole way that it got started. Are you guys familiar with ayahuasca? How it got started?
Well, let me hear your take on it.
So the ancients, I'll say what the ancients say is that the plants told them how to mix them together.
Yeah.
So it was actually just the fallen angels are in a dimension that we can't perceive with our physical eyes, but they could hear. So they just talked to the humans, and the humans thought it was the plants. And they said, put this plant with this plant, and then they mixed them together, drank it, and boom, you got a fallen angel in front of your face. You can interact with them because you're in a dimension where you can now see them. And that's where the trickery begins.
So, do you think you can reach Christ through psychedelics?
Oh yeah, that's how so the first trip I really did. So when I say I tripped, I did literally everything. I built my way up from coughing syrup to, I mean,
I
every.
need to laugh. It sounds exactly like myself.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Yeah, I did everything except for ibogas. The only thing I never did.
I have done that.
Yeah, so I encountered Jesus that way. It was just a huge head, and he was green. So in the astral world, everything is a certain color, but it's not filled in. It's like a blueprint world, really. And like I said, when I saw that 7-headed 10-horned beast, it was red. And when I saw Jesus, he was green. It was this huge head, like Wizard of Oz style almost. How I saw him, and then I was told Jesus Christ isn't for you, but if you call on him, he'll help you whenever you need. And he nodded, and he like turned his head, and he winked and smiled. And I've since learned that that was a trick. That he's just some guy that could help you, but it was actually, and I knew it was Jesus because it was the face of God. So, and I've seen him in my clouds since, of which I have photos on my website about, which is amazing in itself.
Wow. When you said you were psychic, do you have psychic abilities for each person you encounter, or do you also have psychic abilities? Do you get like predictions on what we're headed, or is it not?
No, I don't get predictions. That's that maybe if I talked to somebody that did that, maybe I could pick up on it a little bit. But no, I don't typically do any kind of.
Got you.
Yeah, but I mean, so the way I'll predict something is as above, so below. When something happens in my life, I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to happen. Something to this effect will happen in the world. Like when China and Germany were flooding a few months back, like I think 2 days prior, I was on a podcast, and I was like, yeah, my kitchen was flooding because my fridge, something was leaking in there, so my kitchen was flooding. I was like, there's probably going to be some kind of flooding in the world, and then it happened. But so that's the only way I predict something, is just like as above, so below. Other than that, no.
So your psychic abilities are more with whoever you're working with or yourself. I got you. So it's just, this is so interesting to me, man. Very interesting.
I've never seen any like being or anything. All the times I've only eaten mushrooms, really, and I did acid once, but I've never seen anything like that.
Well, consider yourself lucky, my friend. You may be protected by Jesus Christ already and don't even know it, because
So my mom went to a psychic long ass time ago and said that I have people watching over me. And the amount of shit that I've done that I've gotten away with, I would say probably I believe that.
Yeah, so it's funny how we think that when psychics, all right, I'm not putting down any psychics, but they see beings around us all the time. Some people see, and they just think that it's normal, that, oh, they're good, that they're around us, they're helping us. But actually, they're just here because they're not up there because they have to, quote unquote, gain their wings. But a lot of them just hang out around here and just mess with us. They're tricksters.
Yeah.
That's why they're bound to the earth plane, because they don't want to stop sinning. So they keep sinning, but they don't really understand why that they're still stuck on the earth plane. So we'll be told that there's different spirits around us all the time. You have a spirit guide and teams and so on, which is true to a degree, because there are beings that are assigned to you. They're supposed to help you reach your ascension, and that's how they ascend, essentially. But the beings that are around us, you don't want to interact with them, because the good ones, they don't interact with you. That's not how they ascend. They ascend by helping you, by them being selfless and not taking credit for it, by them just doing things that will help you. That's how they ascend. So they're not going to contact you. They're not going to come into your life for really any reason other than unless it is very needed. Sometimes it is very needed. You'll have angels who come in and like swoop someone that's about to get hit by a car, and they just all of a sudden they're thrown to the side of the road or something to this effect. You know, miracles happen all the time.
Yeah.
So those things do occur, and there are beings here that maybe they're not evil or anything, but they don't really know why they're in purgatory, because the spirit realm on the earth plane
They're
is
just bad
purgatory.
people, and that's why they're stuck here. So you don't want to hang out with them anyway.
Well, yeah, somewhat. Yeah.
I think Biggie had a song about this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll send it to you.
Okay. So yeah, but some of them are on their way up, and they'll stop down, and they do have the ability. Like, there's different levels to heaven, and whatever level key card you have access to, you can get to that one and below. So there are spirits that can come down in rare occasions, but very rare occasions. People who think that they're in touch with Archangel Michael and Gabriel and all this, like all over the place. That's probably not happening. It's probably tricks mostly. The only reason that
You're crushing me, man. So much of the stuff I thought I was.
Hey, I've never interacted with anybody, but I've gotten out of a lot of bad situations. So probably
This is not bad. This is not bad though, because it's stuff that I call it new age, call it whatever, that I once again probably was messing with, because you're saying things that are resonating with me. That's like I've been getting the feeling lately. Maybe I'm not doing shit that I'm supposed to be doing, and maybe
that's how they get you.
Yeah.
They give you these half truths. They give you some information that you can never possibly know. That they can make things appear for you. You can quote unquote manifest things, but it turns out like none of that is actually how we're supposed to be living. So you're trading off something when you do those types of things, and we just don't know that we're being messed with. We think we're doing it because they make us think that we're God, which is the ultimate rebellion. That, oh, we're God, because when we take psychedelics, we go to this consciousness wave, and we're like, oh yeah, this is all love and all that. But that's when we take psychedelics, we go to a place that puts us as one with God. But when we're here in our physical bodies, we are human. We are part God. There's a big piece of God in all of us, and we all share that. But we are all individual, unique, and we are all equal here. So one person claiming that they are God and that they're the only ones who are doing things in their life and manifesting everything, well, it's not really true, because you interact with other people on a regular basis, and we can't control everything that happens to us. If I were God, I wouldn't be doing a good job of living my life. I have quite a hard time at times with life. So obviously I was in prison. So,
yeah,
it happens that way.
Well, Well, it seems like you're doing good for yourself now. That's awesome that you changed your life, man. That's
No, well, thank you.
That's unbelievable. And anybody, if you got yourself off of drugs and you got yourself out of prison and you're living a good life or a decent life, man, that's you deserve some credit for that. I'll tell you that.
Well, thank you, my friend.
You got it, man.
Do we get reincarnated?
So, okay, mine it's a little long-winded, the explanation, but so take a car. You have a brand new car, right? And then you have a windshield break. So then you have to switch out the windshield. So is that still the same car or is that a new car? Say, okay, you got a new windshield, then you have to get all 4 new tires. Is it still the same car? At what point of switching out things is it still the same car? So when we die, parts of us die off that get burned into the abyss, and parts of us are so good that they go up to heaven. But the majorities of us, we reconnect with other energies that are still here. So say I lose my left arm because it goes to hell and my right arm goes to heaven. So now I'm armless. So I'm like this, I'm swimming around in the sea of afterlife, and I'm trying to reincarnate again, but I got to find arms that'll work for me.
Why
so
would
what
an
I do,
arm go to hell?
It's just a metaphorical thing. Yeah. So, but there's pieces. It's pieces of us.
You're saying pieces.
So
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're saying like
different.
Go ahead.
Yeah, like different personalities, different emotions. So, like if your anger, maybe that's a better explanation. Is the emotions. Like if your anger is anchoring you down, but there is a piece of you that is, helpful to all old ladies across the street every time you see them. That piece is going to leave you, while the majority of you is anchored by the anger. So you're not going to ascend. So now you need to fulfill that other role that has left you. So then you collect something else and you take on the karmic debt of that thing. So then you have more karmic debt. So you do get to have another chance at discernment, becoming one with, as the Bible says, something of ruling in the clouds alongside God, because you have God's discernment that you can, quote unquote, become God. That's what the reincarnation process would be. You would want to keep doing it until you finally get it right. So yes and no, that it's not exact. It's not a 1-for-1 reincarnation, but it does exist.
Mm-hmm. So do you study the Bible?
Not particularly. I don't. I talk to many people. There's been just the synchronicities of life. I've had like 20 straight guests that are heavy into the Bible,
mm-hmm.
and we've been covering those topics on my podcast. I often look to get information not directly from the book itself, because the book itself has words in it that it's, for me, I'm not a book reader. I can read, but it's, when I became psychic, my brain moves too quickly. I need to do multiple things at once. I can't really keep all of my attention right on a book in order to comprehend it. So I'll learn from different people about the Bible, and the stories and also the prophecy is what I'm really into lately.
The Revelation prophecy?
Yeah, well, all of it. It's funny that you say the Revelations, because a lot of conspiracy theorists say that they think we're in the book of Revelations right now. Mm-hmm. So the full name of the chapter is actually the Revelations of Jesus Christ, which means if we're in the book of Revelations, by the name itself, it's everyone is going to have the revelation that Jesus Christ is God. That is what the book of Revelation stands for.
Wow.
So if that's what if we're in that time period, that's what everyone has to come to, that realization, that revelation.
Wow. So, that's awesome, man. Well, look, I gotta run. It was this was awesome, Todd.
This was fantastic. Thank you so much.
I would love to talk to you again, and when we get done, I want to talk to you off air for a minute. But thank you so much, Todd. Where can everyone find you if they want to hear more?
All right, so my podcast is Godcast, the Goodness Over Darkness podcast. I'm on YouTube at Goodness Over Darkness. My website is emmanuelkingman.com, and from there you can find my social media and email address, and you guys can hit me up on any of those platforms.
Thank you so much for being on. This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.